If laughter is the best medicine, subscribing to my channel is your prescription.
Little Jay only walks a cow through the village square. The mayor sees him and asks, "Hey, Johnny, where are you going with the cow?" "I'm taking her to the bulls so she would get pregnant," answers Johnny. The mayor is shocked. "Surely your father had better be doing that." Little Johnny thinks about it for a bit and shakes his head. "Nah, I think it's really best left with the bulls." 2. Little Johnny and his friend Billy were strolling through the park when they came across 3 women sitting on a bench, each eating a banana. As they passed by, Johnny cheerfully said, "Howdy, ladies." Curious, Billy asked, "Do you know those women?" "Nope," Johnny replied, "but I can tell you who they are. The nun, the prostitute, and the bride." Stunned, Billy asked, "How in the world did you figure that out?" Johnny grinned and explained, "Well, the nun held the banana in one hand and used the other hand to break it into small, neat pieces before eating it. The prostitute," he continued, "grabbed the banana with both hands and shoved the whole thing into her mouth." "Wow, that's pretty clever," Billy said, impressed. "But how did you know the third one was a bride?" Johnny chuckled. "Oh, that was the easiest one. She held the banana with one hand and pushed her head toward it with the other." 3. In the middle of the night, Roger was fast asleep beside his wife when a loud knocking jolted him awake. He glanced at the clock. 3:30 in the morning. "No way I'm answering that," he thought, relieved his wife was still asleep. Rolling over, he shut his eyes and tried to drift off again. But just as he was slipping back into sleep, an even louder knock echoed through the house, this time waking his wife as well. "Aren't you going to answer that?" she mumbled. With a groan, Roger dragged himself out of bed and trudged downstairs. He opened the door to find a drunk man swaying on his doorstep. "Hey, buddy," slurred the stranger. "Can you give me a push?" Roger, annoyed, snapped, "No! It's 3:30 in the morning. I was asleep. Go away!" He slammed the door and climbed back into bed, muttering to his wife about the encounter. She listened, then turned to him with a frown. "Roger, that's not very nice. Remember when we broke down in the pouring rain on the way to pick up the kids from the babysitter? What if that kind man who helped us had told us to get lost?" Roger sighed, guilt washing over him. She was right. With a heavy heart, he got out of bed again, threw on his clothes, and went downstairs. He opened the door, but saw no sign of the drunk man. Stepping out into the chilly night, he called out, "Hey, mate, you still need that push?" A distant voice replied, "Yes, please, mate." Roger looked around, squinting in the darkness. "Where are you?" The voice called back, "I'm over here, on the swings." 4. Yesterday, I received a friend request from a young, attractive guy, probably around 19 or 20 years old. Curious, I wondered why someone so young would want to connect with me on Facebook. So, I accepted the request. Almost immediately, he started messaging me. He called me beautiful and asked my age. I'm an honest person, so I told him the truth and mentioned that I was much older than him. He didn't seem to mind and kept chatting. Honestly, it felt flattering, so I went along with it. Soon, he asked if we could talk about adult things. I said sure. He responded, "Thank you, babe. You start?" So I did. I told him about my adult things, how I have arthritis and my knees hurt, how my back gets stiff in cold weather, and how I struggle with insomnia. I didn't hold back. I shared about my pacemaker, my reliance on laxatives, and even how proud I am of my high-quality dentures. I gave him the most honest rundown of my adult things I could think of. But for some reason, he blocked me. I'm still scratching my head wondering why.
Wait! Want to make a difference? For every 1,000 subscribers and likes, I'll donate $100 to a senior in need. Help me help the elderly. Subscribe now.
A big-shot businessman had to spend a couple of days in the hospital. He was a pain to the nurses, bossing them around like his employees. The head nurse was the only one who could stand up to him. She came in to take his temperature, and after some complaining, he reluctantly rolled over for a rear-end reading. She left the room, leaving the door open as he heard people laughing outside. An hour later, the doctor came in and asked what was going on. The man replied, "Haven't you ever seen someone getting their temperature taken?" The doctor paused and said, "Well, not with a Carnation anyway." 6. A programmer and his project manager board a train headed through the mountains. They can find no other place to sit except for 2 seats right across the aisle from a young woman and her grandmother. After a while, it becomes quite clear that the woman and the programmer are interested in each other, as they keep looking at each other. Soon, the train passes into a tunnel, and it is pitch black. There is the sound of a kiss, followed by the sound of a slap. When the train finally emerges from the tunnel, the 4 sit there without saying a word. The grandmother thinks to herself, "It was very rude of that young man to kiss my granddaughter, but I am glad she slapped him." The project manager thinks to himself, "I did not think the programmer was brave enough to kiss the woman, but I wish she hadn't missed him when she slapped me." The young woman thought to herself, "I am glad the guy kissed me, but I wish my grandmother had not slapped him." The programmer has a satisfied smile on his face and thinks, "Life is good. How often does a guy have a chance to kiss a beautiful woman and slap his project manager at the same time?" 7. 3 men climb to the top of a tall mountain. Suddenly it begins raining. Therefore, the 3 men won't be able to get back down safely until the rain stops. Suddenly, a genie appears and informs the men that if they name an object, they will be able to jump off the mountain and land on that object. "Pillows," says the first man. The man then jumps off the mountain and lands in a pile of pillows. "Money," says the second man. The man then jumps off the mountain, lands in a pile of money, and runs off with it. The third man hesitates. He paces around, pondering his response. Suddenly, he trips on a rock and falls off the mountain. "Crap!" the man yells. 8. A choir boy goes to confession. He says, "Father, forgive me, for I have sinned." The priest asks, "What is your sin, my child?" "I've had carnal knowledge of a girl, Father." "My son, it is good that you have confessed this to me, but wasting your innocence on these base acts is a sin. In order to fully redeem yourself in the eyes of the Lord, you must tell me which girl you committed these terrible acts with." "Father, I cannot say her name." "Oh, come now, my son, you must. Was it that wanton creature Maggie Fitzgerald?" "No, Father." "Was it Annie O'Grady? I hear she's Delilah born again. Do you remember the tale of Samson?" "Yes, Father, and no. It wasn't her, Father." "It must have been Nancy Keith. That girl could put the strumpets of Babylon to shame." "No, Father. I cannot say the name of the girl. I made an oath before God not to tell." "Well, although it is a commendable thing to honor oaths sworn before the Almighty, this act cannot go unpunished. You must say 15 Hail Marys and you are suspended from the choir for 2 weeks. In the name of the Holy Trinity, I do resolve you of all sin. Go with God. Thank you, Father. The boy solemnly walks out the doors and sits on the steps of the church, next to the other boys from the choir. What did you get? They ask him. A fortnight's holiday and 3 good leads. 9. A balding, white-haired man from Sherman Oaks, California, strolled into a jewelry store at a local mall this past Friday evening with a stunning, much younger woman by his side. He told the jeweler he was looking for a special ring for his girlfriend.
The jeweler showed him a $5,000 ring, but the man replied, "No, I'd like to see something more special."
Taking note of the request, the jeweler brought out a dazzling ring priced at $40,000. The young woman's eyes lit up and she trembled with excitement. Seeing her reaction, the old man said, "We'll take it." When the jeweler asked about payment, the man said, "I'll pay by check. I understand you'll want to verify the funds, so I'll write the check now, and you can call the bank on Monday to confirm. I'll pick up the ring on Monday afternoon." Come Monday morning, the jeweler angrily called the man and said, "There's only $25 in your account." "I know," the old man replied, "but let me tell you about my great weekend. Remember, not all seniors are senile."
10.
Miss B, well into her 80s, was beloved by all for her sweet and kind nature. One early spring afternoon, the pastor dropped by her home for a visit, and she welcomed him into her charming Victorian parlor. She invited him to sit down while she prepared some tea. As the pastor settled in, his eyes were drawn to something curious, a cut glass bowl filled with water, perched atop her old pump organ. Floating in the water was, of all things, a condom. The pastor was shocked and puzzled, but being a gentleman, he decided not to say anything about the odd sight. Miss B soon returned with tea and cookies, and they began chatting. But as much as the pastor tried to focus on their conversation, his curiosity about the bowl became overwhelming. He couldn't resist asking, "Miss B," he said, pointing to the bowl, "could you tell me about this?" "Oh, that," Miss B exclaimed with a smile. "Isn't it wonderful? I was walking downtown last fall and found this little package. It said to put it on your organ, keep it wet, and it would prevent disease. And you know what? I think it's working. I haven't had a cold all winter."
One Sunday morning, the pastor noticed little Johnny standing in the foyer of the church, staring up at a large plaque. It was covered with names and small American flags mounted on either side of it. The 6-year-old had been staring at the plaque for some time. So the pastor walked up, stood beside the little boy, and said quietly, "Good morning, Johnny." "Good morning, Pastor," he replied, still focused on the plaque. "Pastor, what is this?" The pastor replied, "Well, son, it's a memorial to all the young men and women who died in the service." Soberly, they just stood together, staring at the large plaque. Finally, little Johnny's voice, barely audible and trembling with fear, asked, "Which service, the 8 o'clock or the 9:30? This is a conversation between a man and a woman. Please note that she asked 5 or 6 questions, which he answered quite simply, but then she was speechless after answering only one question. Woman: "Do you drink beer?" Man: "Yes." Woman: "How many beers a day?" Man: "Usually about 3. Woman: "How much do you pay per beer?" Man: $5, which includes a tip. This is where it gets scary. Woman: "And how long have you been drinking?" Man: "About 20 years, I suppose." Woman: "So a beer costs $5 and you have 3 beers a day, which puts your spending each month at $450. In 1 year, that would be approximately $5,400, correct?" Man: "Correct." Woman: "If in 1 year you spend $5,400, not accounting for inflation, the past 20 years puts your spending at $108,000, correct?" Man: "Correct." Woman: Do you know that if you didn't drink so much beer, that money could have been put in a step-up interest savings account, and after accounting for compound interest for the past 20 years, you could have by now bought an airplane? Man. Do you drink beer? Woman. No. Man. Where's your airplane? And before you go, here's the deal. I tell jokes on YouTube, but this is no joke. For every 1,000 subscribers and likes on this video, I will find 50+ homeless people and donate $100 each to them. Hit subscribe and let's spread laughs and kindness. Thank you.